Okay, sorry for the drama. That's what happens with life. Baby just woke up from a nap, and they put him in the bath. I don't know if he has a tummy ache or if he's just, I have no idea. He feels fine, but he just probably wanted to snuggle and hug. Okay, so I'm going to finish the math thing for you guys. And I know I'm giving you a lot at one time. Let me just make it simple. All right, so my son, who I would consider, so I'm talking about Kendra, who's 6, who I was having a really hard time and thinking, oh my gosh, he's way behind in all these things, like where my kids could read. Some of them at 2, and I'm thinking, there's something wrong. I remember taking him into NAC at 4, and they told me he just learns backwards. His audio is really high, and his visual is very low. I think he was like at a 2 visual. And then 3 is where they get to a stop and block stage, and if you look up NAC and work with them, you'll understand that's where they really need high intensity, or they don't want it. Unless it's fun, they don't want to do anything with it. It's a really hard stage. But you also know when you got to that stage is when they get to a level 4, they're more wanting to please you and getting that attention. But the other one you can't do if it's work. Level 3 and personalities and things like that have to do with the levels too. What's going on with them? Okay, but I want you to understand that when I started with Kendra at the beginning of the year, let me flip it. This is what he was doing. He was literally doing this, and we had started Thumb Wars where he was doing Thumb Wars with counting by 2s, counting by 5s, counting by 10s. And it was doing a this one, maybe a this one, a this one. Once he could do, and literally we are now, 3/4 of the way through the year. His school is more like this, where he does this kind of problem, he does this kind of problem, and then he is doing, this kind of problem, and he's able to do, and again, hold on, he's able to do this kind of problem. And a dividing problem, which he's still to this, sometimes I'll write it like this now. Okay, I make sure I do it, I try to do it all the ways, or I'll do it like this. Okay, again, it's visually showing him what to do when he sees these problems. Okay, I'm only picking 5, though, that I do one, he does one, I do one, he does one, meaning I do one, he does one. If he gets it right, I do another type of problem. I do one, he does one. Some of these problems I don't have to. I can just do it, and I don't even have to do it. I just write that, and he knows how to do it, and he does it, which is why I push him to a higher level. I'm like, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. Okay, so how do I do this one? The same thing. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to cut. I'm going to count. And, I say, can I take 7 away from 3? So my verbiage is, can I take 7 away from 3? And then, no, we can't take 7 away from 3. We borrow from the 2 and turn it into, take 1 away, it's a 1. And we give the 1 over here 13. Count. And then I have him go 13. In the very beginning, I literally will put 3 and say, can I take 7 away from those 3? 1, 2, no. And you don't have to go through all the explanation of it. And then when I add that 10, I add 10 more, and we count through up to 13. And then when I take away, I'm drawing the line through it, kind of like I did before. Sorry, you're seeing the edge of the paper. But like I said, if there was 13 up here, or whatever it is, let's say the number was 8, and again, it was subtracting 3. Whatever is left, I have circle. And they just get the habit down. In the very beginning, you might have to be helping them along by making them, holding their hand and having go through how many? 1, 2, good, or circling when they get it wrong. If they forgot to circle, count. And then we go, can I take 6 away from 1? No, we're going to borrow from the 4 and make it a good 3. Even when I'm doing my own problem, I get him to talk through my problem. And I give that 1 to there, and that's, what is that number? A good 11, and then we count on the top. If they're already to the level where they're memorizing what 11 take away 6 is, then they can do that. If not, they're counting and then taking away 6, and then same thing, count, take away, down. This thing is the same thing. he can only right now count by 2s, 5s, 10s, 3s, 4s, and 6s we introduced. Okay, so because of that, I can do 36. I've already been able to go 0 and bring it down, and him I don't know what to do that. He already knows that when we go to 6, I instantly go count, and I go 6. I make 6 here. I make 2 here. I make 4 here. So how do I do it with this? I'm going to go count by 6. I don't have to say this anymore with him. He already knows it. He's already memorized it. He goes 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36. Sometimes if they get the numbers wrong, you have to, if it's like a new one they're doing 6, you have to maybe do thumb wars right before. Let's do thumb wars again of 6. All right, let's count by 6 again. I might have to help him through it. And then if he writes 36, I go, okay, 30, and then 6. And then we got to write the three little ones here. Okay? I know there's numbers all over, and you're probably like, oh my gosh, I can't even read this. And then again, 6 times 2, 6, 12, and then he's learned the habit of me going 6, 12, and he writes to write 12. No, 12, 13, 14, 15. And then a what is 15? A 1 here, good, and a 5 here. In the beginning, you're going to have to be, saying the words in between, and then let's make a little 1 there, okay? Not to mess it up with the 2. Sometimes with 1, I don't add a 1 at all. And then again, 6 was 4, 24. I don't write in pen. So then I erase these extra numbers on top, but I still leave this because then I go cross out and bring a what down? A 0 down. If you didn't know that, I'd say cross out and bring a 0. But when he does it, I'm going to say we cross out and bring what down? A 0 down. We let him say it. And then now 3 times 6. Count by what? Good. 3s. 3, 6. And he goes through the same thing where he writes 18. So this has been erased, and we have a 1, and with the one little one, so on and so forth. And then he already knows how to add. So when you get to the bottom, put the big adding thing, and the same thing, like the next time, 3 times 2 is 6 plus 1 more is 7. Okay, I didn't even finish the problem here, but we'll finish it. Let's see. 6 times 6 is 36. 6 times 2 is 12. 15. I put it over here. 6, 24, 25. Hopefully I'm doing this right now because my brain is dead. 18. 7. Good. 12. Okay, so when we've added it, I don't even have to cut it anymore, but you can cut it in the beginning because sometimes when they write it themselves, their lines are, their numbers are a little bit over. Their handwriting's not as good, but they're going to end up counting and things like that. So your goal is sometimes we don't know which point to go up and which numbers to pick. We have our review thing. So then you're going to do 5 review and you're going to do 5 verbal. So verbal is where and I've been doing this from the beginning. I'm going to pick 5 verbal maths where I'm going to be doing, okay, I have 8 cookies. Take away 3. What do I have? We started at that. And then I did things like you have 25. We start with basic things. I have 2 boys, or 2 birds fly into the yard and 2 more birds fly in. How many birds do I have? So I'm going to be doing all these conceptual. He has to think about it. Okay. So you're going to have some verbal math. I'm going to teach him to count with his fingers. I'm going to teach him to put things in his pocket. So if I say things like 13 plus 5, and I've done this with Earl. Okay, I say something like, okay, what's 13 plus 5? And I've already taught him, and I've started moving him from doing the counting to like, what's the big number? 13. Put 5 fingers up, and he goes 1, 2. And I go 13, 14, 15. So where I would literally, I've gone from one level of putting all the numbers to taking the biggest number and starting going 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. If I'm doing verbal math, I'm saying what's 13 plus 5? Or I'll say 35 plus 5. I'll tell him to put this in his pocket. So I don't explain. I just go 13 in my pocket and 5 fingers up, 13. And I point to my pocket and then go 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And what ends up happening is he just does it. I go, I'll point to how many in your pocket? Okay. And then how many fingers up? And then, okay. And then I'll point to it, 13, and then I'll start it. And once you've started it, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, you can, the same thing as doing something like 26 take away 7. Okay. Obviously they only have how many fingers. All right. So you're doing 26. And this is, like I said, you can do this as a visual thing, but when I'm doing an audio math, I'm going to do something where I do something like, okay, the big number is what? What's the biggest number? Good, 26. Again, we're teaching them to get the concept of what is bigger. They're learning on their own. 26, take away 7. Okay, put how many in our pocket? 26. And then, and the more you talk, if you're like, well, we want to keep 26 because that's the most money. I mean, they've already forgotten all the visual things that you're doing. So small cues, 26 in our pocket, 7 fingers up, and we go, and we show them how when we count, we subtract. And if I had 7 fingers up, which I can't, sorry, one of my hands is going, I'm going to go 26 in my pocket, 26, 25. When I'm counting down, no, I'm counting down 25, 24, 23, 22, 21. And then obviously my next hand comes up 20. And what comes before 20? 19. Good job. And sometimes you have to help them because sometimes it's hard to go. And so those become so I pick 5 verbal ones. Sometimes people just like to have a math book so they can get some verbal problems. They can ask things. So now what I'm doing with him is, because we've gone through these basics math and he's already up there. I've been pulling, because he jumped so fast with all those, I've been pulling things and I'll go, okay, we're going to do this one. I just write it down and I'm having him search for the 10s first. And I'll go, 2 plus what is 10? And I'll show him with my fingers the concept of 10s. There's 2 over here and look, 8 over here. There's 3 over here, and look how many fingers are over here, 7. There's 4, and look how many fingers are over here, 6. But again, I'm not doing any more than 5 problems or 6 problems. So you're sitting down with them really shouldn't be taking any more than 30 minutes. Because I'm going through these basic things. Let's say it took 45. Let's say it took an hour and a half because you're just trying to figure this out at first. The point is I'm now taking a higher level 5th grade math book, and once I've got him through those basic numbers, and you might think, well, what about the clock, or what about these things? I do the clock. I'm not doing it with math. I'm doing it with a separate thing, and that's going to be on another video where I explain where we fill in these things and stuff. And so, if you have older kids, what's great is you do not want an older kid going through math with them. You want you going through math. Also, the audio I will build up to do things like this. 6 plus 2 minus 3. I forgot to do that and show you that on the sequencing video. I do that with my older kids, and I do that with him, but I'll take easier math. But the older ones, it might be 25 divided by 3. Not divided by 3. 25 divided by, well, that's still 25 thirds. But I don't want them to write anything down. So let's say I say 25 divided by 5 plus 6 times 3. They have to repeat that, and then they have to work it out, okay? And it's funny because even if the kid is doing like algebra or, right now all my other kids have already gotten into college. So my next age kid is Garen, who's my autistic one. And then I have a big jump. Then I have my 12-year-old daughter she's doing algebra right now. And like I said, and she had a harder time with math. I really had to slow down with her. But she's still, like I said, she just turned 12. And she's doing algebra. So she's still far ahead, even though, yes, I had a kid doing calculus at 12 and other kids. But she's had a really, really hard time having an older brother who's autistic, who's younger than her, and figuring out her place and stuff like that. So you want to be able to have these kids not feel dumb, not feel whatever, not compare. Help them with consequences, help them with when they're struggling, help them become independent. And I'll talk about this with the other videos. So this is visually how we do it. If you have any questions at all, I promise I will try to make more complex videos when I have time, where I can really make a whole math series and I'm on a board where I'm not trying to tape myself. But if you have a question, remember, add Marco Polo. Add me to Marco Polo, and then ask me a question on Marco Polo, because I never have time for people to call, because everyone stops doing what they're supposed to be doing. You already see what happens. But I tried to videotape so many times, and then I was like, oh my gosh, because I tried to make it perfect, and it was never perfect, and this isn't perfect. And but I hope you get how fast you can jump someone, and then what ends up happening is, like I said, I'm going through this math book and bringing in conceptual things that his brain isn't at yet. Like I go through this book where he totally maybe can do all the adding problems. Those are really simple. And he can do the multiplying problems. I mean, I don't even think this book gets up to basic multiplying. I started adding in, I will take, and what you do is you just start with a lesson. And you do a couple lessons. You do the practice problems the first couple lessons, and you might see a practice. One of the lessons are like, wait, he already knows that. I would do a couple of the practice problems, and then I would do of the new lessons. So like 3 or 4, because you're still, when you're sitting down with your kid, you're only doing maybe 5, maybe you build up to 7. And then when they're older independently, they're doing the practice problems plus 15. So they're really only doing like 18 problems. But these kids go really fast. They're grasping everything. They're able to, because it's just not, math is not taught in the order that we learn it in. And a lot of times they're just being bored or held back, or we don't actually realize how far they can go forward, because some things are visual, and you'll find a kid who does really well, but they couldn't do geometry. And it really was because of where they were visually and audio at the time, that they weren't conceptualizing that, because geometry is more of a conceptual thing. So their audio might have been lower and the visual might have been really high at the time. And so the thing is once they pass it, they don't go back. I mean, I do like Saxon because they mix geometry. They don't have a geometry book. They mix it between Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. And then you're going to higher level things when you go into pre-cal and trig. And but what's great is if my kids even forget, I can go back and give them problems from that. So when I'm reviewing for a test for them to get into college, because they have to take all these tests to get into college, and I'm not even talking about ACTs and SATs, when they're younger than the ability that I want them to leave home, like 14 or 15 or 16, they go test over at the junior college, and the Lone Star here in Texas, and they test, and then they have to be at the math level, all the levels. They have to be at college level in order to get in. And so I will review some of the old stuff with them, maybe if they've forgotten some things, and I'll test them on what they know, and then they'll go in and take it. And if they pass at all the levels, then they are able to take classes there. And then what's great is when they get into the higher level colleges, the 4-year colleges, they are just looking at their grades from college. I've never had, like, my older kids who got applied to the 4-year college after they got their associates. They never asked them for their high school. They were only looking at their college transcripts. So that was sent. And they didn't even have to do ACTs and SATs because they already were in college. Because those were tests that were done to find out how your kid would do in college. Well, they are already looking at them going, well, we already know how they did in college. They got a 3.87, or they've got a whatever. And for them, they're thinking, this is this age kid taking college classes. And, all right, that's my long story of the ending of that. Again, we're pulling new concepts from the math books once they've gone through that general idea. I add in shapes sometimes, I'll add in fractions, but I'm doing the least amount of talking and showing them how to do stuff. But all of these things, like I said, are going to be in the math books that you can go follow through them and just pull 3 lessons, and you're just doing the practice problems and teaching them that new concepts, and then they're doing a couple problems of the review from the ones they had before, and they just keep pushing forward. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, bye.